everyone, and welcome to this episode of Progress in Practice, a series where we at Go Well Consulting profile the initiatives being brought to market by some of the businesses that we work with. I'm Nick Morrison, and this is the show where good ideas meet real-world action. Today, we're heading to Taranaki and to an organisation that's doing something quietly impressive at the edge of its runway. New Plymouth Airport has commissioned an on-site solar farm, a serious investment in cleaner energy that's changing how the airport powers its operation and their local community. It's a project that sits at the intersection of environmental responsibility and sharp commercial thinking, and it's a great example of the kind of forward-looking decision-making this series is all about. In the conversation you're about to listen to, we speak with David Scott, Chief Executive of New Plymouth Airport. We talk to David about the project, how it came together, what it means for the airport today, what it means for their local community, and what it signals about the future for the airport and for the industry. It's a practical, honest, authentic conversation with a leader who's clearly thinking well beyond the next flight. Hope you enjoy it. Hello, David. Great to see you.
Morning, Nick. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very well. Where are you coming to us from today?
I'm in New Plymouth, so I'm on deck at the home base. So yeah, just in New Plymouth today.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much for making the time to join us on this episode of Progress in Practice. We are really keen to dive in and start talking to you about your initiative. So can you start by telling us what is your Progress in Practice at New Plymouth Airport?
So in the last 2.5 years, we've embarked on a program or a project, I suppose, to build a solar farm. The project started off quite slowly and quite small, but evolved into essentially what we have now is a 15 hectare, 12 megawatt solar farm. That we now power the airport with. We have a private network here in the airport as well, that we have customers who use our power, and we export the excess into the national grid. So it's
Incredible.
been quite an exciting process.
So when did you turn the lights on, so to speak?
November. So one good thing about having a solar farm is the commissioning and testing is actually producing power. So we have been not only turning on the lights, but also turning on the bank account, which is important. So we've been making revenue, but more importantly, getting the kinks out of the system since November. Fully commissioned in the middle of December.
Right, so a few things to ask there. So firstly, I want to just clarify, you're coming to us right now using 100% solar generated energy.
We are. We're still connected to the grid. Because the sun unfortunately doesn't shine all the time here, so we need that backup. But we are also we have also purchased the BESS system that will be connected in about 12 weeks or so. So that will also provide a backup power for when we don't have the solar coming directly into the terminal.
So that's the battery.
Yeah,
Right.
backup BESS, backup energy storage system. Battery energy storage system. rather. So
Yes.
So that'll be essentially our storage for when the sun isn't shining, and we'll be essentially off the grid most of the time.
Amazing. So just a couple of quick side questions on the BESS, the battery.
Yes.
What is it again? Battery
Energy storage system.
Yep. So what capacity has that got, and what does that mean practically for you guys? Does that mean that it will be able to power you for a whole day or a half day? Yeah.
It'll be able to power us in the private network for about 4 or 5 days without any power at all. Now there will be times when that does go completely dead. Unfortunately, we don't have 100% guarantees of weather. That is one of the small challenges with solar. You do need to be able to store that excess when you can. So it's a 1.2 megawatt battery, so it's a decent size. And funnily enough, we don't use a heck of a lot of power here. and it's a very, very small portion of what the farm itself produces.
Right, and all of this is on your land, on New Plymouth Airport land?
So the solar farm itself is technically on council land that we lease, but that land was bought on behalf of the airport for sort of protection of urban encroachment. Airports don't do well when suburbs start expanding into the area. So we the council strategically bought some land, and we approached them 2.5 years ago with the possibility of putting a solar farm in there, and we now lease that land off them.
Got you. So they're obviously been a pretty big stakeholder in all of this.
Huge. Yeah. They're our owners. So any major capital expenditure needs to be approved via council resolution. And that's a sensible thing. We borrowed money off our own bat, but through the LGFA, the local government funding agency, and that was approved by council. So there was a comprehensive business case that went to the council, and they approved that lending about 18 months ago, which was when the construction of the project started. Yeah.
Fantastic. So I want to go back to you just talking about the use of it. So just explain for us, please, that the private users, so that these are businesses who lease space, run their businesses, coffee houses, etc., inside the airport.
So there's two things. We've got the terminal building itself, which has a number of tenants. We're a tenant ourselves, and obviously the common area in the terminal, which is the departure lounges, the check-in areas, the arrival areas, the baggage belts, all those things. Those are what we consider common areas, although tenants do share in some of those costs. Then we've got actual physical tenants, so we've got the likes of rental car agencies, we've got the cafe. We've got Air New Zealand who are internal tenants as well, and they run on their own ICPs. So what we have done is replace those ICPs with meters, so they are actually charged based on their own usage. Now, in addition to that, there's a number of hangars that were on the same transformer line that have also converted into that metering system. So there's about, I think, eight different customers who sit outside the terminal as well. So they're also on our private network. Yeah.
And so they're all tapping into the solar farm electricity. They're using that.
Yep.
And all of you are sort of on the same system. So if you run out or the sun's not shining, whatever, you first go to the battery storage and then go to the grid. Gotcha.
Yeah. And time will tell how often that happens. We don't, that's one of the things we don't know yet. So
that's right. With solar farms, any kind of solar project, as I understand it, they do a lot of modelling around the sunlight hours for the summer months through the winter months and expected amount of kilowatt hours, but they don't really know 100% until it's operational.
You don't. There's really good data out there, and so far it seemed bang on with what we've done so far. But you're 100% right. You don't know what might happen. Yeah. So you have to just wait and see. And those modellings change every year, obviously. Yeah.
And can I ask, so for you as the chief executive, but also as the organisation as a whole, you're comfortable with that? You're quite okay with that slight uncertainty in your power supply?
We don't actually have any uncertainty in supply because we're still connected to the grid.
Right.
Yeah. So we could not go there really. As a key piece of infrastructure, we had to make sure the backup. The BESS system gives us more. It also gives us more resilience as well. Right. We've got a backup diesel generator here. We're a key piece of infrastructure. We're hoping, but it's very early days, that at some point we might be able to, discontinue that. The only time it ever comes on is if there's a full power cut, and that's not that often. But we it's one of those things that you have to have anyway. But it may be that the BESS system can also be used as the backup power generating system as well.
Yeah, right. Well, and the reality is that we're seeing more and more extreme weather events, that these kind of things really need to be considered, right?
Sure do.
They're not as they're not thankfully that common, but they're getting more common, right? These kind of power cuts and disconnection from the mains. I want to now go to the power outage, the supply, the generation of the electricity.
Yep.
So you talked about the users who are using it at the moment. Roughly, what kind of percentage is that of the total generation when it's at its peak? So middle of the summer and the sun's really shining and it's at its highest. How much are you and the other airport residents using, sort of percentage wise?
So it's around about 4%. So that's been what we've modelled. So it's a very small amount.
That's very small, yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, there's a total output of approximately 14,700 megawatt hours annually, and we'll use about 4% of that here, based on what we have modelled from the past.
And so, why build one so big? Why build one with another 96% capacity?
Well, a couple of reasons. One, it's a good economic decision for us as a company that's trying to diversify its income streams. We also have seen that it also helps provide the community with another source of power generation. We as we electrify as a country, generation is going to be needed. Yeah. But we do look at it also very importantly as a community initiative, an asset. Yeah. But it is good money. I'll be put my business hat on as well. We think there's some really good options going forward to store some more of the excess energy that we produce, and potentially play the spot market a bit more with some time shifting through some more battery storage systems. Right. So we'll take our breath for a while, get it going, and just see how things are working. And so far, so good. There's no issues. But then look at what other investments we can make to better use the maximum output of the solar farm.
Yeah, fantastic. And so just to clarify, so about 4% ish you're using yourselves and your residents at the airport are using. 96% is going back into the grid and being used by general grid users. So that could be a home down the street, or it could be a business down the street.
Absolutely, yeah. And we've also got some what are called. We've partnered with Ecotricity now. Ecotricity they purchase 100% renewable generation.
Yes.
Yeah, and they have worked with us to create private pricing agreements with some of the local organisations, particularly the council. Right. So the council is essentially buying from us through Ecotricity as the provider, and that's the way the system actually works here in New Zealand. The power companies buy the generation and then on-sell it. Yes. So the stuff they're buying for us, and they've given them a very favourable rate for that. So we can, the council is buying discounted power from us
through Ecotricity. So Ecotricity buy off you for a price, and then Ecotricity sell it to the council for a price.
That's correct.
Yeah. Fantastic. And is there? I know I sort of know the answer to this question already, but is there some plans to use the electricity elsewhere, i.e., EV charging stations?
So we've already got our EV charging station live now. We've got the fast or the rapid charger that sits in our main car park, and we did have free chargers there for a while just to encourage people to use their e-vehicles, doing our bit. We've now got a rapid charger in there that's paid for rapid charger, and that's powered directly from the solar farm.
Amazing.
That's part of that network.
Right, so you're really putting in the infrastructure to help decarbonise the land transport as well, right? So just sorry to interrupt, but we've also installed and forgive me, I don't know the exact number, but it's somewhere like 18 or 20 chargers for the rental car operators as well. Now at the moment, and that will be powered by the solar farm and the private network as well, but the rental car fleets are still primarily combustion, but they are transitioning into e-vehicles. So we've future-proofed that process now. So when they're ready, and there's a few there, we've already started to see them now get some electric vehicles in there that will be ready to go. Awesome, because that's one of the big concerns around hiring or buying, using an EV is the availability to charge, right? And so there's just the general availability of a charge station, but then that second thing is that you're helping to do that using solar, 100% renewable, no emissions electricity.
That's right.
Amazing. I think it's just so fantastic that you've been really, upfront that it's makes good commercial sense for you guys as well, but you are seeing it as a key piece of kind of resilience and infrastructure for the region, really.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We feel like it's and you mentioned it earlier, and you're 100% right, that airports during extreme weather events and emergencies do become critical pieces of infrastructure. And if you look at what's happened in the likes of Gisborne and Napier over the last few years, the airports became extremely important, and quite often they were the only places that actually had consistent power because of their backup generators. And we're doing the same thing here, but our difference is that it's renewable. So we're a wee bit unique. Yeah.
So I want to ask you just quickly about your knowledge of other airports doing this. Do you, both in New Zealand and globally, are you aware of other airports that have got this level of solar production on site?
At the moment, we're probably unique in New Zealand. Gisborne has got a small solar farm as well, about half the size of ours, but that's actually separate from the airport itself, so they don't have the direct connections. A number of airports are looking at doing this, though. They see the same benefits that we do. One of the things that airports generally have is a bit of land that you can't do a heck of a lot else with. Because of the nature of aviation and obstacles and obstacle limitations and those things. It's essentially a big area of flat land that you can't do a lot with. Well, you can put solar panels on them, and people are seeing that. And if you've got the grid close by, or a connection to the grid, that's the key. Then you can make it work.
I wanted to ask you just to gaze into your crystal ball a little bit. I'm sure you're aware that there's some electric planes on the market, and I know Air New Zealand have done a bit of publicity around a couple of the small ones they've got. Is that likely that we'll see planes charging from your solar farm?
Absolutely. Yeah, it would be something that I think will be unique at the moment. In fact, if Air New Zealand bought their testing aircraft here, which they could do, we could charge them right now with renewable energy. Which would be pretty exciting.
Amazing. Well, hey, call out to New Zealand to get there and do that then, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to now talk about the emission side of things. So obviously, one of the key reasons we need to go to solar is because it creates electricity or energy without burning fossil fuels, and therefore there's no carbon or other greenhouse gases going into the atmosphere. So can you talk to us about that? And have you done any modelling, or have you looked into the emissions that you'll be avoiding by having this?
Yeah. And so it is basically just a numbers thing, because we can calculate with reasonable accuracy what our carbon emission tonnage looks like here. Airports, funnily enough, are not massive emitters. Airlines tend to be naturally, but we're more the facility they operate in. So we can control quite a bit here of what we do, but still, there's we produce about 1,500 tons a year of greenhouse CO2
equivalent.
And so we'll be avoiding that. I think it is important to recognise that in the construction of the solar farm itself and the panels and the inverters, there is there are emissions involved in that. And that side of things, and that's and we think that's about a 3.5 to 4 year period of payback. But once that's done, we'll be carbon positive, if you like, moving forward, which is huge.
That is huge, eh? Right.
Yeah.
And what this farm, my understanding is solar farms like this, or at least the panels have a lifetime of about 25, 30 years. Is that about right?
Yeah, look, Nick, it's getting better and better. We've sort of modelled on about that, but we feel like we'll probably get a bit more than that. It's
Right.
getting to sort of 30 years now is sort of a bit of a benchmark, and that's going to increase. It is one good thing about this industry. You've got into it at a point of high development. If you look at how solar panels have developed in the last 10 years, it's
Yeah.
going through different iterations of improvement all the time.
Amazing. Hey, David, I've got a couple of images here to
Yep.
to show and to share, and that show the farm and the process of the construction
Sure.
of the farm. So I'm going to bring those up on screen now, and then ask you to speak to them for me and tell me what we are seeing. So I'm just going to share my screen now. So what are we seeing here?
So you're looking at the finished product, really. That's the completion of Te Matakupenga. That's probably about 3/4 of it right there. And if you can just see to your left, the beginning of the moanga in the background, but that sits around about 500 metres away from our runway. That farm there, and that's approximately half of it actually. But yeah, it's a good shot. Yeah.
And so that's the runway is back in front of us at the foreground of this.
It's off to the right of the photograph. Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So closer towards the ocean there.
Correct. Yeah.
Right. This looks like partway through.
That's the very beginning of the project. So essentially, what we were looking at was a very established farm that had been run by an operator for a number of years. So the site had to be prepared. The good thing about solar farms is they're not massively complex.
Right.
You can pretty much put them anywhere, but you do have to make sure the land is safe and reasonably prepared. But that was a relatively simple process, and what you're seeing there is just some initial access roads being put in. That's where the inverters actually sit now in some of those areas. Right. But that doesn't seem that long ago looking at that, but we've certainly come a long way.
Can I ask, just looking at this, have you got any concerns or any flooding concerns?
The ground gets a bit wet, but no flooding. That is one of the benefits of where we are. We're essentially on the plain of the moanga, and it slopes towards the ocean. So the rain tends to go. We get ponding, but we don't actually get flooding per se.
Okay, good to know. This looks a bit further in. How long are we into the project here?
So that's probably only about 3 months. So it became very, very quick. If you actually have a close look, what they've done there is they've already put the piles in.
Yeah.
That was probably a process that we were a wee bit nervous about because it is done mechanically, and they essentially just knock them in with a huge crane operated hammer, essentially, or not huge, but and we're worried about the noise. Because you don't want to upset neighbours and inconvenience people, but it was fine. It was extremely smooth, and it went ahead of time for Infotech actually, who were the EPC contractors.
Right, I was going to ask that question. Okay, so Infotech were the solar company that helped you do all this. So they organise all this. They come to you with the modelling. They organise the panels. They build the farm. They do all of that for you.
Designed, build, but they end up obviously with things like piling and construction, subcontracting that out to different operators. But they were the main EPC for the project.
Sorry, what's EPC stand for?
Oh, sorry, engineering, procurement, and construction.
Right, gotcha. Cool. And now, how far along is this? This looks pretty close to completion.
Well, that's the completion of the panels. So that's the panels are all in. And it's actually an interesting time because once you put the panels in, it looks done. And, I had a number of people asking me, okay, so when are we going to When's the juice start flowing? And that was probably in February of last year, if I remember correctly.
Right.
Then the real work actually starts, and that's the wiring, the cabling, the building of the transformers, the setting up of the inverters. And because the inverters are obviously critical, they take it from DC down to AC, and then connect it into the grid and down to our private network. So that was when the real nitty gritty of the project actually gets done. This is the physical part, and this is the obviously the building of the dam, if you like. But actually getting the output requires quite a bit of intricate work.
Right. Just looking at these panels, are they fixed or do they turn? Do they move?
These are fixed. A lot of people go with tilted panels that will actually rotate with the sun. Those are more efficient, but they have a heck of a lot more moving parts. So there is a lot more that could go wrong. And for us, with the profile that we had, we could make this work with fixed paneling.
And what direction are they facing? Is it directly north or is it slightly northeast, west?
To be honest with you, Nick, I'm not 100% sure. It's not directly north because the sun profile is slightly different because you want to capture it in different parts. So but not quite directly north, but cool. It's optimized. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Okay, and here. This is the blessing of the site, is that right?
Blessing of the site. So Puketapu Hapū are the mana whenua of the land where our airport is, and also where the solar farm is. So they were incredibly important part of our whole project. And we took them along the journey from the concept to actually when the naming of the site, which is Te Matakupenga, was made, and that was done in consultation with the Hapū. And the name itself is actually a reflection of when Maui captured the sun's rays to help him with his journey to Aotearoa. And it's a pretty fitting name when you think about it. Yeah. So we're always consulting with the Hapū and iwi. And they're an important part of this project and will continue to be.
Amazing. I love that collaboration, that creation, that kind of community vibe that you've brought in from the start, from the relationships with the councils to the installers to the contractors to the local iwi and Hapū. I think that's just awesome. And
thank you.
Really commend you for taking that approach.
Thank you.
And the last one we've got here.
It's not a bad shot, is it? Yeah, we're very lucky where we live here. And, you talk to most people, they don't believe that the weather actually looks like that. And I can assure you that it does the majority of the time. We get some wonderful views, and that's a pretty good vista that's actually highlighted what we've done. Yeah, very proud of it.
Yeah. Can I just ask one more question while we're looking at this last photo around the land? And I know that some solar farms have like grazing animals or something. Do you have that? And B, did you consider any other kind of use of the land?
And that's a really important question, because the land itself is not just the land. It's the foundation of the farm and where it sits. So you have to manage that. You can't just let the grass grow and become an impediment, because one, it would impact the performance of the panels themselves, but also it becomes a fire hazard. So we have, there's two options essentially. You either cut the grass, you see that we've sprayed underneath the panels there a bit, or you graze. And we thought that grazing is a much more eco-friendly and practical solution. Actually, provides a farmer with an opportunity to make a bit of money, but also actually solves a big problem for us. So we've decided. So we've fenced off our farm into sections, so the farmer can do rotational grazing on it, and so we've got sheep in there. Yeah, so it's worked really well for us.
That's such a win-win-win, right? I have heard some anecdotal evidence from some that it's a really good shelter for the sheep. A, it gives them shade in the hot sun, and B, provides them shelter from the rain.
There's anecdotal evidence out there that say the sheep actually perform much better in solar farms than they do in regular paddocks. So that's very true.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah. I just love again that multiple sort of benefits that you've brought to this thing. It's not just, hey, let's create some electricity, sell it back to the grid, and make a bit of a buck. You've thought about the resilience of the local community. You've thought about emission reductions. You've thought about relationships with local iwi council, and you've thought about the use of that land. Yeah, again, really commend you. And can I ask, did that just come to you naturally, or has this been, a collab with others, and they've brought these ideas to you along the way?
It's a really good question. I think it's actually been a process of osmosis.
Right.
As we've sort of gone through it, it's one of these unique. It's one of the most unique projects I've ever been involved with. It started off very much as a commercial project. We were looking at how to diversify our income as much as we could after the COVID pandemic. Airports in general and aviation took a real hit. Not uniquely, but we did. So that's where it started. But I think as we started going through it, it was pretty clear that this was actually a pretty meaningful thing to be doing, particularly when we started looking at creating our own private network, creating that resiliency in there, and came across very, very little opposition. People, this is not a bad thing. It's using nature to create energy, and it's clean, it's green, which has been an evolution for a lot of us involved in the project to understand why that's important too.
Yeah.
The easy thing to do would be to build a farm, stick it all onto the grid, and take the money. And possibly that might have made it a little bit more profitable. Don't know. But we decided, no, we want to be part of this. We want to be the generator. We want to own the generation and sell it, and also be a distributor. And those are two big calls. Those are two big things that you have to do. So we've taken the hard road, but it's the better road.
Good on you.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it's awesome. Just one final question, just coming back to that kind of profit and the revenue that you create from selling the excess electricity you've talked about. What does that equate to in terms of a financial payback period? You talked about that sort of 3 to 4 year payback of the embodied carbon. Do you know what the rough timeline is to pay back the investment?
About 7 to 10 years, and the reason that's a reasonably big one is because we've taken the best case and the worst case scenario there. So far, we're reasonably confident that that'll be the best case, but you don't know what's going to happen with weather. That's just being realistic. You can't guarantee that the sun's going to shine as much as it did last year, so there's a big margin in there for that. But that's sort of where we're looking at.
Right, and we also don't know what the price of the grid electrons will be, right? We know how.
Well, you don't,
volatile.
And the modelling shows that they're just going to keep going up. But generation is coming on board. There's particularly a lot of solar and renewable energy being coming on board and in the works and being planned. From what we can tell, there's going to be a fairly big demand for storage because New Zealand's profile actually means that our highest use of consumption, particularly from a household perspective, happens when the sun's not shining.
Yeah.
So
All those cups of tea in the morning and the dinner at night time, eh? Yeah.
Correct. And turning on heat pumps when it gets cold.
Yes. Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for your time, David. I keep talking to you about this for a day, I think, but probably need to end it there and give you some time back and let our listeners go. But thank you so very much. I encourage those who are listening to check out the New Plymouth Airport website. They've done a great job of sharing the project on there and got some more stats and figures and communication on there about the project. And I'm sure, David, I can say if they're interested in doing their own farm, that they should reach out and get in touch for any top tips on how to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, be more than happy to share. Yeah.
So, Well, thank you so much. Thank you for doing it, and thank you for your time today.
Very welcome, Matt. Thanks a lot.
Well, that's a wrap on this episode of Progress in Practice. A big thank you to David for his time and for walking us through the thinking behind the new Plymouth Airport solar project. Really interesting to hear from him how it came together, what it took to actually deliver it, and the community that is around this project and impacted by this project. What I appreciated most by the conversation I just had with David was that he didn't frame it as just the sustainability story. He talked really openly about how it was a really good financial investment for the organisation as well. Also, how it benefited the local community. So it's that kind of thinking where commercial discipline, environmental responsibility, and community awareness come together, which is what this series is all about, and one of the key themes and messages we're trying to get across, not just in this series, but in the work we do to the businesses that we work with. I was also really impressed to learn about the efforts that they undertook and the success they had in bringing all the various stakeholder groups along on the journey with them. So often that doesn't work, and there's too many egos involved, too many chefs in the kitchen, and projects don't get off the ground, or they drag along because of it's not done well in terms of engaging people and bringing them along. So I think that deserves full credit to David and the team for how they did that. I think it's also worth noting New Plymouth Airport are not a big organisation, right, in their own words, and in some ways that makes this even more interesting. It's a reminder that you don't need to be a major infrastructure player or massive business to make meaningful impact on our energy transition and the transformation to a circular economy. If today's conversation left you wanting to know a bit more, go to the New Plymouth Airport website. You'll find links below wherever you're watching or listening to this. And if you're enjoying some of the themes that are coming up from this conversation and other episodes in this series of Progress in Practice, please reach out to Go Well Consulting. We'd love to help more implement the positive change that we need. We'll be back soon with another conversation. Until then, go well, mā te wā.